Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor.
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday. Hope you're staying warm. Another good show coming at you. Kevin Brockway will be joining us soon. He was at the college football playoff championship game last night, national title game. Mike DeCourcy will be along, also at last night's national championship game. So we're 2 for 2. I don't think Chronic made it up there, so 2 for 3. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Ain't that what the saying is, John? 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
What's that from?
Probably, that's a song.
Okay. Maybe it might date me.
It's obviously before your time. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us. Forrest, Michael, I hope everyone's doing well. Having a good start to the week. Georgia is your national champion. For all those that thought Alabama could not be beaten. It was a slow going game early on. Halftime was what, 9-6? All field goals. And then things kind of changed around a bit on the backside, giving Georgia their first national title in 41 years. That's a long time when you stop and think about it. You have Indiana fans complaining about stuff. This is Georgia, man. This is where Herschel Walker played. Man won a national title in 41 years. They probably played for one. I didn't look to see that, but yeah, so they're happy as can be. Indianapolis successfully hosted the national championship game. They can add that to the resume now, along with the Super Bowl, NBA conference championships. No Super Bowl's coming up, what, 2 years? Or does that already happen? I'm so lost right now. There's too many games, John, to keep up with. Indianapolis is just the hub, baby. The hub of
And I'll tell you what, if
when
COVID
is the Super
keeps
Bowl in Indianapolis?
I don't know. They switched the site. I
what?
don't keep up with all the Super Bowl host sites, but I'll tell you what, if COVID keeps going the way that it's going right now, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if the NCAA men's basketball and women's basketball tournaments are back in Indiana again the way they did it last year.
I would love it. I'm not going to lie to you. I like the heck out of that.
Of course, everybody around here loves it because you don't have to go nowhere. You're already where you need to be for the entire NCAA tournament if the team you're covering continues to advance. So,
they had the Super Bowl in 2012 in Indianapolis. I didn't realize it was that long ago.
This year it's in SoFi Stadium, wherever that is.
I thought they had another one coming up. Well, why am I thinking that? There's just so much going on. I guess maybe the national championship game.
Here's locations for the next 3 years. This year it's in Inglewood, California. Next year, Glendale, Arizona. The following year, Las Vegas, Nevada.
There you go. There you go. So, question solved. Dwayne, how are you doing, man? Everybody watching football last night, not many eyes on basketball. The new AP Top 25 came out. Baylor at the top. Gonzaga number 2. The Bruins, UCLA 3, Auburn 4, USC 5. Okay, you've got USC and UCLA in the top 5. How long has it been since that's happened? You got Arizona in 6. The Pac-12 has 3 out of the top 6 teams. What is going on? The Pac-12 has 3 out of the top 6 teams. The ACC, I think they have one team in the entire thing, in the entire top 25, which is Duke, which I've already passed them. Yep. Illinois, number 25. Indiana, if you're wondering, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. 31 in the total. Others receiving votes. They received 12 votes. Oklahoma, the first team out at 26, received 122. You can't lose to Syracuse, and you can't lose when you're up by 22. For the fans wondering, why isn't Indiana ranked after those wins? They haven't forgot about those losses. Sean says that cold Indy air last night probably saved some property damage. Too cold to raise Cane for the Georgia fans. Yeah, they raised a little. You're right, because Jesse, how are you, sir? They raised a little ruckus at St. Elmo's. I guess it was the night before last or whenever it was. And they're singing it wasn't a Georgia fight song. It was just a Georgia song, but they all broke out and singing, and somebody wasn't having it. Called the police. Saw some pictures on social media in a short video. Nothing happened. It's ridiculous. I mean, to be honest with you, really, you're going to call the police because we'll sing a song? I mean, it's aggravating. Yeah, especially if I'm not a Georgia fan. I get it. Tough. I kept seeing people, it's a nice steak restaurant. Well, I saw the people that were in there. They weren't wearing tuxes or ties. I saw a lot of alcohol on the table. So, if that's their biggest complaint, if that was the biggest problem that the IPD had, I'm sure they're happy with that. Very happy. How did you like the game? How did you think Indianapolis did? Georgia knocks down the big bad bear, Nick Saban. Twice he's lost to an assistant this season. I don't think he'd ever lost to an assistant prior to this season, had he? And this Georgia loss was the second time this year. Games coming up tonight. Who are you going to be watching? Who are we all going to be watching? Because we've got to find something to do when it's cold outside. Last night you had the Mike Whitson show out at Southern Stone Restaurant. Indiana preparing to take on Iowa on Thursday in Iowa City. Oh, man. There we go. So last night, I'm trying to, Division I, let's go with top 25. Or let's just go to the Big Ten first. Probably weren't. Yeah, there were a couple games. Northwestern. Oh, that was Sunday. No, Ohio State beat
You're
Sunday.
right. There was no Big Ten basketball yesterday.
Well, it jumped on me when I scheduled it for that. But tonight, Rutgers is at Penn State. Boy, you can't wait to watch that game. 6:30. I'll be standing in line with the popcorn. Number 25, Illinois at Nebraska. Now, this should not be anything, but Nebraska's, they're going to get somebody, you think, at home. Michigan, third straight game postponed now. No, was this the second game? I know Michigan State was canceled. Tonight's game with Purdue is canceled. Let's just check their schedule out. If that gets to 3 games, that's going to start becoming a problem for the Wolverines, who are currently 1-2 in the league. Overall, they're just 7-6. Not a great start to the season for Juwan Morgan and crew. Juwan Howard and crew. But when you start missing those games, we saw this with Ohio State, and they talked about, the Indiana game was their second game back after a long hiatus. The first one was playing a road game at Nebraska. You start missing those games. Does that make you rusty? But the Purdue-Michigan men's game was postponed because the Wolverines simply had fewer than 7 scholarship players cleared because of COVID-19 protocols. The Boilers were scheduled to play tonight at Michigan. As I said, the Wolverines also had to postpone a game this past Saturday against number 10 Michigan State for the same reason. In the 2 months since Division I college basketball season began, 700-plus games have been postponed or canceled. 700. 700 plus. That is a crazy amount of games, folks. Think about the people not working. That's a big number. On the men's side, about 12% of the games were canceled or postponed through January 3rd. The majority of the coronavirus-related cancellations and postponements came in mid to late December. So there's that. How is this going to affect Michigan? Are they already not as, they're not as good as, maybe they're not as good as we thought they were, but also they've been slowed down by these start-stops and haven't been able to get to where can you imagine, you've seen the growth in Indiana's team. Can you imagine if they have been forced to start-stop like that? I promise you, it would make a difference. You've seen Indiana's offense get better, improve with each game. Probably wouldn't be the case if they had to cancel 2 or 3 games in a row. Makes a gigantic difference. Yep. The way season is going, teams are going to be tough to beat on their home floor. And that's something that Woody has pointed out and said, hey, everybody's going to be thinking that. We have to protect our house is what he's told his team. Sam, how are you, sir? He's got his socks on his feet with sandals in Winter Garden, Florida. It ain't that warm, brother, up here. I can promise you that. I wish we were doing the show from Winter Garden, Florida. Don't you agree, John?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I haven't been to the beach in a long time.
I couldn't tell if you were there or not. I couldn't hear you. Kevin Brockway is going to join us.
For a break. That's why I was popping.
Perfect. Well, hopefully when we come back, Kevin will be with us and we can talk about last night's national championship game. He was a participant, or it was there. Mike DeCourcy will be joining us as well. He was also there, so we can talk about that. Got to talk about the Colts too, man. Dang it. I mean, gee whiz. I know we'll do a lot of that tomorrow with Kravitz, but holy smokes, that is just that's just the biggest bomb I've seen this year by any team in sports, man.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
That sounds like a lot of Colts fans right now. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration.
We'll keep that on standby.
That was
because I'm sure there will be plenty of moments for that in the next couple of days.
There's always room for that one.
Mm-hmm. My messages aren't sending for some reason. So for some reason, if you don't get any break texts from me, it's because my phone's acting up. Because I tried to send it twice earlier and it didn't go through.
Try to send what twice?
I tried to just send the word break and it didn't go through. It kept rejecting it.
Oh.
It just said a message won't send. I don't know why, but oh well.
What was I looking up? Damn it. Ooh, I'm hot.
And them lights.
Well, yeah, I always have these lights on, but it's warm in here today. Holy smokes.
All right, yeah. Kevin said he's going to be on here shortly. And then obviously Mike should be here any moment.
Oh, then I got to figure out how to deal with Friday. I guess I'll have to do it by myself.
Yeah, we can discuss leading up to it and the best way to tackle it. And there should be ways that I can help you after the fact, but we'll need to discuss what needs to happen.
Because that's the day after a game.
They play Thursday this week?
Yep.
All right. We're coming back from break. We'll talk about it later.
Or you can find it any place you podcast or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It's Tuesday. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Hope you're having a good one. Waiting for Kevin Brockway to join us. He was at last night's college football national championship game. Winners were the Georgia Bulldogs, of course. It was a good game. A lot of times those games, the semifinals not always good, but the national championship games are usually pretty good. That's a pretty good game. I mean, really. No blowouts. Close. Favorite. Actually, were they the favorite when the game went off? I know Georgia started as the favorite, but I would have been really shocked if they would have stayed that way. Did they?
I don't know. I was about to look and make sure, but I would have assumed Alabama would have been favored considering they won the previous meeting, but that doesn't mean.
Well, it didn't matter because they weren't as soon as the line was announced right after both teams went in. I think Georgia was the initial favorite at least.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't find the line, but if I do find it, I'll let you know.
Well, the Mount Verde's having an invitational 27th through the 29th here in January. 15 minutes from Sam's place. Kevin Brockway joining us now,
right.
as is Mike DeCourcy. Both were at Lucas Oil Stadium last night, I believe.
I was. Yes, absolutely.
He's got his Steelers shirt on. Yep, got the Steelers shirt on. They came through. Man, we got a lot of stuff to unpack this week. Boy, Steelers fans are very happy, and the Colts fans, ooh, that's a whole nother story there. But last night's game, I was just talking about, a lot of times the semifinals games are not always great, but most of the times the national championship games are pretty good. This was a pretty good game. I mean, other than going down to the last second, a field goal or something. I mean, it was a pretty good game between two really good teams.
Yeah, the score did not indicate at all what happened. I mean, that was a very tight, well played game. Not a great offensive game, but both teams had mostly better players on defense, especially after Jamison Williams got hurt, and hopefully he's okay. I have not heard. I was in the process of writing my Georgia column, so I had not heard if there were any reports relative to his health. I hope he's all right. But once he went out, most of the best players on the field were defensive players, and their actions dictated what occurred.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating. I was really surprised the number of Georgia fans out, kind of drowning out the Alabama fans. I think it was close to 2-1. Maybe they were hungrier.
They could have been too hungry. They were all at St. Elmo Steakhouse apparently the night before.
But I just thought that they came in droves. They were very loud throughout the game. They certainly weren't happy about that Stetson Bennett call in the fourth quarter. There were some things thrown and some. I was in the auxiliary outdoor press box, so I got a little bit of liquid sprayed on my laptop. Thankfully, not on my keyboard, so I could still function. But I thought it was very interesting also that Stetson Bennett came back from that mentally, that call, because sometimes it could fluster people, but he's a veteran, and came back down and led them on 2 touchdown drives when they really needed it. For as much as they were confused in the early part of the game, Georgia kind of figured it out in the fourth quarter, and I think Alabama's defense wore down a little too.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, was Georgia, did they stay a favorite going into the kickoff? I know that when the game first was determined that they were the initial favorite. Did they stay the favorite?
Yeah, they were the favorite at kickoff. That was probably based on
betting,
the fact
just
that,
betting.
Also, the fact that it's hard to beat a team like that twice in 1 year. That's not an easy factor. We don't see it happen a lot. I think Georgia as well was physically superior. Alabama has some amazing talents, but this was not, even as much as Nick Saban was able to get out of it, this was not a vintage Alabama team. And it's understandably so. I mean, they lost ridiculous talent a year ago. Najee Harris, Jalen Waddle, those guys were obviously Devontae Smith, Mac Jones. Those guys are unbelievable talents at the college level. I watch Najee now, and he's an unbelievable talent at the pro level, and it just blows me away that he was in college 12 months ago.
He only 42 yards rushing for Alabama in that game. That's not vintage Alabama in terms of, they were one-dimensional. And Bryce Young was certainly, without Jamison Williams and Mechie, I thought, still managed to throw for 352 yards, but was pressured throughout that game as well. So I didn't think I agree with you, Mike, in terms of the fact that this was not a vintage Alabama team. But I kind of thought going in, Alabama was going to find a way to win, because I thought that Nick Saban had Kirby Smart's number, and I thought that off the SEC championship game that Alabama would find a way to get turnovers and really frustrate Stetson Bennett. But I guess it was Georgia's time, the first time since 1980, right? Since Ronald Reagan or Jimmy Carter was president, that Vince Dooley was there, 89 years old. And, I think Kirby Smart gave him a hug and went into the stands. And it was certainly an interesting atmosphere for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, when you put that number in perspective, Mike, that's a long time for a program like Georgia. We're not talking about Indiana. I was like, this is Georgia we're talking about here, folks, from the SEC, where Herschel Walker played.
Yeah, and it's kind of amazing because not just because it's Georgia, but because there's so much talent in their state, and there's so much talent across the border in Florida. And during those 40 years, Tennessee got good enough to win a national championship. Georgia Tech had a national championship. Auburn had a national championship. Florida had multiple national championships. And then, of course, Alabama became the greatest power in the sport. And all that time, you're like, how can Georgia, subsequent to Vince Dooley, how can they have that much trouble getting this right? But they always seem to get it just enough wrong in terms of who they hired and who those hires put together as teams. This was only the third time in all of those years when they even had a shot, and one of them was almost immediately after. I think it was '82 that Vince Dooley put together another perfect regular season, but they lost in the Sugar Bowl to Dan Marino and Alabama. Excuse me, Dan Marino and Pitt. And then there was another one in 2017 when Kirby Smart got them to the CFP title game, but they blew a significant lead. That's the only chances they had. So it's really kind of amazing that they were able to with all that they had, with all the assets they have as a football program, to not be more powerful. And so last night maybe changes things for them a little bit. We'll see whether that's the case. But nobody can look at Kirby Smart now and say he can't get it done because he's done it. And I think one of the interesting things about that now is that with the way college football economics have changed, and I'm sure Georgia can afford this, but they have to. They're going to have to secure Kirby Smart now. We saw with Jimbo Fisher, money talked and he walked. Lincoln Riley, okay, you want to pay me big, I'll leave. So you can't count on anything. You have to, with what was paid to Mel Tucker and James Franklin, and of course the coaches Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley who moved. You've got to pay now. You just, if you want to stay in that stratosphere, you don't have any choice.
If Kirby Smart went to a school in the Big Ten, would he adopt a Northern accent, though? I think that's the question.
I like it.
That's a lot tougher to do. I can promise you that. Talk about the coaching changes. I mean, you don't have to go far. Indiana has seen a wealth of changes, and not on the side of the ball that I think most people were expecting it. The defensive side of the ball is not where they thought changes were coming. They ended up losing two coaches unrelated to the other right at the same time. But now they've got Tom Allen has to bring in his third defensive coordinator in 3 seasons. And they will have their third offensive coordinator in 4 seasons, I believe. That's tough.
One of the reasons why it's been tough to sustain excellence at Indiana, because it's not been a power. They can lose coaches to people poaching for to enhance their staffs that have traditional power, and as well, that sometimes coaches make changes because they feel they're necessary, and obviously with the way this season went, not surprising that Indiana would feel compelled to do that.
Well, Charlton Warren, it's interesting. He's going to North Carolina. Obviously, he has ties with Gene Chizik. But I don't know did Tom Allen really – do we really think he tried hard to keep him? I mean, the defense only forced 9 turnovers. And the defense was good early in the season. It was kind of beset by injuries, but it did have some holes later in the season too. So I'm just wondering – was this a move by choice? Did Tom give him his blessing and kind of let him go? Kevin Peoples, I thought, certainly did a very good job with the defensive line, and he's moving on to Missouri, and that makes a little sense because he has ties down there. He was coach in Arkansas and Arkansas State for a number of years, so he's going.
And
back
I believe one of these coaches that he is there now was a former player of his, or something like that. But the thing with Charlton Warren, though, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's not even a lateral move yet. It will probably become that when Chizik becomes the head coach. I'm assuming when Mac Brown steps down and announces that Chizik is the head coach in waiting or whatever. But still, it's not. It's the ACC is really on a downward slope in football. I just don't see it as being a anything other than a downward move, really, to me.
Well, I think that one of the things you have to remember is that the downward move is an opportunity. ACC is not very good. Cool, I can be good, and it's easier to get there. I'm in the Big Ten East. Okay, so who do I have to climb over? Well, there's Mount Hood, and there's Mount Kilimanjaro, and there's Mount Everest. It's a bit different.
Oh man, that's the best analogy I've heard in a long time. That was good. So now these coaches, these players are coming in. It doesn't seem like the coaches leaving though are having an impact on the players. Defensive players are still coming to Indiana right now. When they didn't have the DC, they were still coming to Indiana. And I'm like, okay, this does not make any sense to me anymore at all. I don't understand anything about recruiting anymore. Because when you got players that are coming to a school that doesn't even have some of their most important coaches, I'm like, all right, I don't get it.
Well, power of the head coach, perhaps. I mean, Tom Allen's a persuasive guy. That's how he became successful, is that he was very good at getting his players to buy into his ideas. And so why not also be very good at getting recruits to buy in? I think that's the logic. That would seem to be why it's in that direction. After all, he's a defensive guy as well, right? That's his side of the ball first. So the players who come there know that he'll have every reason to believe that he'll find someone good, and that regardless of that, they'll be coached by someone who has been a terrific defensive coach.
Kevin?
Yeah, I agree. And I just think that, certainly, one door closes and another door opens, and it's still a Big Ten job. It's still a chance to kind of grow and, learn from a guy from Tom Allen, who's, got a 4-2-5, a unique defensive system that at its best that we saw, I think, in 2019, 2020, creates a little havoc, creates some turnovers. So you've got the opportunity to do some good things. And certainly we saw that with, Kane Womack being able to move on to a head coaching job, and Charlton Warren being able to move on to a job at in the ACC, where maybe he gets back to a little bit of warmer weather too in North Carolina, because it was no fun walking to my car in 13-degree weather last night after the game.
No, I'm sure I saw some other people mention that as well, and that's a little different. But Mike, you and it's Kevin too, but you've been to all kinds of events. How did Indianapolis do for the national championship game? It's wintertime, but it's a football game. I don't think, and it wouldn't have mattered if the game was in New Orleans, it would have been inside. If it would have been in Atlanta, it would have been inside. So a lot of these places would have been inside regardless.
Yeah, it was obviously cold yesterday, but I saw lots of fans out on the street when I went to pick up my credential at the JW. I drove through town on my way home, and there were tons of fans, mostly Georgia fans in the streets, and they seemed to be having a good time. And I can tell you that during the game, Georgia fans, other than during the calls that they disputed, they were having a wonderful time. Now,
I'm assuming those were only the calls that did not go their way.
I don't think they were mad at anything that was called against Alabama. No.
Is anybody ever?
There were some rough calls. I will say, hey, when you're a fan, right? You say when you get a call that goes your way that maybe shouldn't have, you just sort of go, look, get that sheepish look, like glad we got that one. Glad we got away with that. But there were some interesting calls. I thought they were very generous on Bryce Young's fumble / incomplete pass on the first series that was returned for a touchdown. I thought that was a very generous interpretation. And then I thought that the fumble that was charged to Georgia's quarterback was kind of harsh. I mean, he had the ball in his hand and it was a throwing motion. We've all seen guys get the ball knocked out of their hand when they pull it back and the ball goes backward. I've not seen many where the guy was throwing the ball and there was no action on his arm. So the ball sort of tumbled out of his hand as he was throwing. But I thought those were pretty close calls, and Georgia wound up on the wrong side of both of them. The pass, the fair catch interference on the punt was awfully harsh, and then they allowed something similar to go on Alabama. So I can understand where Georgia fans got upset. Obviously, you don't throw stuff on Kevin's laptop. I mean, that's way over the line. But I thought it was the officiating. I think Georgia can come out of that game figuring that they defeated not only Alabama but their own bad luck. Let's say misfortune. If you don't want to, I'm not going to say the refs were cheating or what. No, that's not what happened. But they gave Georgia a tough whistle, as we say in basketball, and the Bulldogs triumphed anyway.
ACC crew, it was interesting. But the advantage of being outside was certainly we were actually a little lower, which was nice, and could take in the atmosphere. The disadvantage was the Zoom calls at the end with the music blaring. Of course, I remembered that. I was reminded of that from the NCAA tournament too. It's like, turn the music down. We need to hear these coaches.
I don't know how far you live from town, but what I learned during the tournament, because there were no in person and it was all Zoom, I left as soon as the game was over. I looked at the celebration for just a minute, and then I left, and I did the Zoom calls and recorded them through my Bluetooth on the car. And I was only 15 minutes from home by the time the Georgia even got started. So I was fortunate to not have to cope with the ambient noise, as they say.
Smart move. We got to take a break. We'll be back with more. We got plenty more to get to. Little NFL talk as the Steelers are in, baby. The Colts are not. Plenty more. We'll be back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Sports on television.
I'm going to run down and get some caffeine.
Good call.
How long do we have?
A little under 3 minutes.
You can take as much time as you need to, man.
No, it's all right. It's all right. It can wait.
Seriously. Kevin will be back.
I'm good.
Mike, how often do you have to drive up to Chicago to do stuff on the Big Ten Network?
I go every Sunday, but I fly.
Okay.
Oh, you lucky dog.
Let me tell you, last week I had flight problems because of the snowstorm they had. And so I ended up driving on the Sunday. And it just destroys me. I mean, the first day I'm fine, but when I get home, I'm just wrecked for the week. So, I'm not, I had an accident a few years ago in the winter, so I'm a little dicey about winter driving anyway. And honestly, it ends up, with with mileage and everything, it's usually not that much different in terms of flying versus driving. So I just let the pilots take care of me.
Smart move. Boy, you got the caffeine in a shaker up style, huh? Oh, that kind of caffeine.
Crystal Light.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say, who shakes up a bottle before they
That's
open
what I thought. I was like, you're about to see that go all over your face, just like the.
If that would have, I'd have said, roll tape, baby.
No, it was. I have it, pretty tight in that seal on the water bottle. So it's like the car song, right? Shake it up, shake it up,
shake it up. Ooh, shake it up.
They were so good.
All right,
it was quite the atmosphere last night.
Absolutely.
The silly dog fans.
Well, you could get lucky. John, was it John that mentioned this earlier? If COVID continues the way it is, possibility that it returns to Indianapolis again this year?
The March Madness is what I was referring to, yeah.
Yeah.
No, they came out last week and said they're doing it the way they do it.
All right, here we go.
I don't think that'll change.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday. Appreciate you being with us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers with me now. Couple things. The college football playoff talks were also going on, and I'm trying to pull it back up, but was it Bob Bowlesby who walked out of the talks from the Big 12, got PO'd and left?
Yeah, I hadn't read that he did that. I know that he was the first to emerge. And I'm not saying it didn't I didn't have a lot of time with everything going on yesterday to read much more than tweets about what happened. So I was not aware that he left in a huff, but I do know that he was the first to exit the room. Bill Bender from Sporting News was among the many college football writers who was outside that room waiting for them to talk about it. And Bob did come out, and he was frustrated. I know that because he wants to see this expand. And George Kliavkoff from the Pac-12, I mean, they put out a statement that said basically any expansion format you want to do, we're good. We'll do it. Let's just get this thing bigger because this is not working. And he's right. I think I don't know what's being heard from the group of five. If it's anything other than yes to an expansion of 8 or 12, then they're fools, greedy fools. Because, okay, I'm going to give you something you don't have now and essentially have no shot at. Or you can stay with what you have now, which is nothing. And you say no to that, well, that's just foolish. So where's the hang up? I know that the ACC wants 8. I don't know why. I don't really understand why, other than, because the ACC in a 12-team scenario has more opportunities to get in, just as everybody else does. The ACC certainly never going to get, as they're currently constructed, a second team into the field with 4. So with 12, you have the opportunity. With 8, highly unlikely. So I don't understand what their hang up is, and I think that they're, I'm bothered that they're playing silly semantic games over the automatic bids. It's the Power 5 and 1. That's the way it ought to be. I mean, again, who are we kidding? If you're going to do the 6 highest rated conference champions, in order to make it most fair, it should be the 6 champions of the highest rated conferences, not one team out of 12 or or 14 or whatever breaks out and has a really good year because everybody in their league has no shot at them. And meanwhile, someone else is locked in a battle with 2 or 3 other good teams and winds up with 2 losses and doesn't rank as high. I mean, let's be realistic about this. Again, don't be greedy. Don't be foolish, because all of this is going to mean more opportunity for the smaller conferences and more money for everybody. If someone out there is saying 12 with no automatic bids, that's where you draw the line. That's a ridiculous plan. But I don't think that's what the hang-up is. It's more about, is it the 6 highest rated conference champions, or is it the Power 5 and 1?
I was hearing from Greg Sankey too. I think the automatic qualifiers, the AQs, were really the main sticking point at this point, and sitting in on that round table. And he mentioned some other things too. He just basically said that if everyone wants what's on their Christmas list, there's not going to be a Christmas. He spoke with the reporters yesterday at 3:00, and I managed to hop in there. Television partners, I know that he made it sound like, hey, look, if when the contract expires in 2025, and leave it to the open marketplace, and whoever bids the highest should get them. And if that's going to be multiple TV partners, that could certainly help the point, because I know that Fox certainly wants to get involved with their Big Ten and Pac-12 and Big 12 ties as well.
Yeah, you've got the Fox, who is now trying to be, and they are a big player, obviously, but equal to, or not, I don't know if they can succeed ESPN, but from the head start that they have, but they have the money to do it, I guess, and they have the Big Ten, which is a very, very important property to them. So they want to expose that property as much as they can.
Yeah, I think the TV issue is something that particular leagues are concerned about. I think they want to be sure that whatever is done doesn't impact the ability to take the whole enterprise to the open market at the end of this contract. And so that, I think that's an issue. But this should not be a hard negotiation. And again, the reality is that it's harder to win the Pac-12 than it is to win the Mountain West. Who are we kidding? I mean, come on. It's harder to win the Pac-12 than it is to win the American. No one believes otherwise. It is, and it will become more so. I get really frustrated when people think, okay, if I hang on here, I might get more. And then usually what it means is no one gets anything. Just use common sense. The Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, ACC, and then the best of the other 5 conferences. And if you happen to get a season in which, somehow, let's say San Diego State has this monster team, then there's and so does at the same time Cincinnati. There's still 12 teams out there. It's still possible to get them in, but it's never happened ever. I mean, I understand that this year, according to the CFP rankings, that one of the Power 5 would have been excluded. But again, that's what I talk about in regards to, at the end of the day, it's still harder to win that Pac-12 than it is for, and I'm not even sure which was the extra team that was good enough. I would have to actually look at the rankings. But whoever that team wasn't, didn't have as difficult a time winning its league as the team that won the Pac-12, even in a down year.
Yeah, I don't know that we're ever going to get it to where we like it, Kevin, because now we've got all this. We've got. I was reading some information about the portal yesterday, and since August, 1,000 football players have entered the portal, and there are still over 600 in the portal right now. And I'm like, that's 2/3, man. I go, where are these guys going to go?
What do you mean 2/3?
Well, of the 1,000 or so that had entered the portal, from what I thought that I read, there were still 600 in the portal.
Well, it's early. It's early though, right?
Well, yes, especially if you don't plan to go for spring ball or the next semester. Yeah, you go in June, but
I would have assumed these guys would have made that move at the semester break if they've already announced that they're leaving. I mean, it's kind of, why would you want to stay in school at a place where you're leaving?
Kevin?
No, I mean, I think that's certainly an interesting point, but I think with the expansion to 12, what you're hoping for too is, more opportunity for players too, and less opt-outs. I think that's the big issue too, and that's something that you want to do. You want to see guys like Kenny Pickett and Kenneth Walker, playing in bowl games in January that could be tied to this, so that they can play in meaningful games and not sit out what they deem to be exhibitions. And it's a fair point for them because there are millions of dollars that are on the table at the next level. Unless, of course, this would be an idea. Perhaps the bowl games front insurance policies for these guys. A lot of them explore insurance policies on their own, but there's so much money right now at stake in getting to the next level, getting to the NFL, that right now with the bowl system, if you're not playing for a bona fide championship, it's really hard for those high-level NFL draft picks to justify playing in these bowl games right now.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it again last night with Jamison Williams, what the risk is. And look, I'm a believer that you can get hurt in any way unless you decide to not train, which usually isn't the best way to prepare for the NFL draft. You could get hurt at the combine. You could get hurt the day before the combine, getting ready for the combine. Jeffrey Simmons, a tremendous defensive lineman for the Tennessee Titans, was injured preparing for the combine, and lost a year in the same way that a lot of the players who are injured in bowl games lose time. So it can happen to anybody in any circumstance. It could happen driving to the gym to work out. So I think the risk is overstated to that player in terms of being injured to that degree. However, what's the reward? That's what you have to answer. Okay, well, you get to hang out with your teammates for another month or so and play in a game. Okay, so Kenny Pickett went and hung out with his teammates for another month or so, just didn't play. I mean, he was down there. He was in the box with the headset and maybe even suggesting a play or two. Who knows exactly what his duties were, but
he got his Xbox or whatever he got in his swag bag.
You still get the bowl swag if you don't play?
Oh, if you're there, of course.
No, if you're there, you get it.
You do. I think that's what you have to decide is what's the reward for playing in that game if it doesn't add up to anything. You get ranked, okay, so I don't know, Pitt lost, so instead of being ranked 9th in the final poll, they're ranked 12th or whatever. Oh gosh, that's really going to change everybody's life. I think you have to ask what the reward is for playing in that game if you have, legitimately millions at stake. Look at it this way, okay? You go and you buy a Powerball ticket, and then you wait until just before the drawing and you tear it up and throw it in the garbage. Well, what's the reward for that? I mean, the risk is that in tearing it up is that you might actually have some money in that thing. The reward is nothing. And I think that's what the bowl games, the reward for that is so meager to play in that game. And so I totally understand why someone with what Pickett has at stake would say, I'm good.
NFL playoffs are coming around the corner, and your Indianapolis Colts are sitting on the sideline. Boy, I can't wait to talk to Bob Kravitz tomorrow. He's going to be all fired up. But wow, that's got to be one of the biggest eggs in all of sports this season. The Colts losing to the hapless Jaguars for a playoff spot. For something that was important. I mean, seriously important to the franchise. After all the hard work, they climbed out of that 0-3 hole, and to end the season with a loss at home against the Raiders, and then to lose against the worst team in all of football. I can't understand that.
I'm surprised you can find it to this season, Jim. Honestly, it's. Like if you were doing a list, like if Sporting News said, let's do a list of the biggest regular season duds in in NFL history. I think that would be in contention for number one. I will tell you, I was at Big Ten Network. We had the IU game on. We didn't have a halftime, so I went to the studio because that way I wouldn't be interrupted watching the Steelers. I wouldn't be in a cab during the third quarter or whatever. So I went early and watched the whole game. And the Colts game was the local broadcast in Chicago. And I turned that. It was once I was watching the pregame show, or I had the pregame show on, as well as what I was really watching was the Hoosiers at the same time. And I had the pregame show on. And as soon as I realized that it was the Colts, I turned it off. I said, I don't want to know what's going on in that game because there's no way it's going to go the way I want. And if it's by some chance it's close in the fourth quarter, then I'll put it on. And the Steelers do, and I never had to turn it on because every 5 minutes, Jim Brown and Bill Cowher and Phil Sims are interrupting and saying, oh, another Colts fumble, or oh, the Jags just scored. And it was never even remotely in doubt. I mean, that's if they had, kind of played, a back and forth game or, a tight defensive struggle. I wouldn't have been surprised by that if they'd gotten beaten on a late field goal or something. But they got handled by the worst team in the league. I mean, it was never competitive from the jump. And that's just staggeringly surprising.
For a team that went into Buffalo and handled the Bills the way they did, beating the Patriots at home, there was just a lot of inconsistency in performance. And I don't know if that's on the coaching staff or on the preparation, but there's an aspect of that. And I know it's the NFL and it's different from college football, but beating the teams that you're supposed to beat, if your team, the level of the Colts and the caliber of the Colts, is something that you have to examine, and it's this weird mental snafu that you can't beat Jacksonville in Jacksonville when this is basically a terrible franchise that even the year before when the Colts lost there, ended up losing their next 15 games.
Mike, what do you have coming up next? I know right now you've got a piece out, obviously, from last night's game on Georgia winning the national championship at the Sporting News. So I'm sure that's going to be up there for a few days for people can go to read about that. Any other future projects coming up?
At the moment, nothing that's ready to roll.
And I hate to say that, like it just sounds like you're not doing anything. There's tons up there, people. Trust me. He just finished this last night, probably at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I can say that whenever the Steelers lose their final game, I'll be prepared with a column about Ben Roethlisberger. I did not necessarily expect that they would lose on Sunday, but I thought that the game would not lead to the playoffs. So it's ready to roll. I'm gonna have to retool it a little bit because we did assume that would be the last game. Ben Roethlisberger, nearly 2 decades as the Steelers quarterback, and what he's meant to the franchise. What the greatest moments are of his career and how they impacted the franchise. So that'll appear at some point. For me, I hope it appears after they win the Super Bowl. But I think the very fact that they made this playoff is miracle enough.
I have no dog in this fight, so I'm like, all right, go on, Steelers. I'm good with that. I'm cool with Big Ben. how many does he have? 2?
2. He's been in 3 and he's won 2.
So that man, if he pulled down a 3rd ring.
Yeah, it's not going to happen, Jim. It's not going to happen.
I know, but I'm just saying that's in some lofty company. Having 2's in pretty dang good company.
2 is very rare company. I mean, John Elway is 2. Peyton Manning.
That came at the very end of his career.
Yes. Both of them got, and Denver got the one Denver got was relatively improbable because at the time during that season, that was when he got replaced. And he clearly, he was more done as a quarterback. He wasn't ever done as Peyton, and that's why they won. But he was more done as a quarterback than Ben is. But the team around Ben with injuries and such, I think they could have threatened if their defense had stayed intact physically. I think they could have threatened, even with the struggles on their offensive line. I think they could have been a threat because they went 9-7-1 with all the problems they had on defensive and offensive lines. I think that they could have been a threat if they had Tyson Alualu and Stephon Tuitt on their defensive line. It would have changed their whole season. But they weren't able to have either, unfortunately. And so I think the fact that they were able to win 9 games is great. I'd like to see them be competitive in Kansas City rather than how they performed in the game around Christmas. They played them on the 26th, day after Christmas, and it was not one more Christmas present. That was not a happy day for Steelers fans. So be competitive, and if that happens, I don't think that there's any Steelers fan would have a right to walk away from this season disappointed.
Mike, I was going to say, if Georgia can win the rematch against Alabama, maybe Pittsburgh can win the rematch against Kansas City.
There you go. That sounds good.
There you go.
We'll go along with that.
We'll find out after Sunday. Mike, thanks a lot. Make sure you go to the Sporting News. Check out everything Mike has up at TSN Mike on Twitter. Can't wait to do it again next week, sir.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jim. Kevin, take care.
Thank you. Mike DeCourcy joining us. We're back with more with Kevin Brockway and myself right after this on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
If you're in the market for man, that went long.
Well, they both kind of showed up a few minutes late, but.
Oh, that's perfect then. Ricola.
I was on the Big Ten show, man, and I've been so jammed with basketball and the CFP. I had no idea about the Charlton Warren stuff.
And they have a guy, by the way. Y'all didn't mention his name, Chad Wilt.
Yeah, Chad Wilt. I did mention it. I called him Joe Wilt, and it was just a disaster. It was like I was like totally not.
Okay, but here's my thing. This guy has been a coach since 2001.
Joe Wilt?
He has coached basically the same position every single year. There was a couple times where he had some other responsibilities, but he has been a defensive line coach since 2001.
Yep.
Well,
I've never seen that.
D-line.
No. I've never seen that in my life. You either move to different positions, period, or different positions on the same side of the ball, or you move up. That's too long of a time to be a position coach at the same position. To me, personally.
There's an argument to that. I think that's a fair
And
point.
that's who your DC is.
A lot of people think it's a good hire,
they haven't even announced it officially that he is the DC. They said he will. They've just worded it in a way that
it's the same thing they did with Walt Bell. I mean, they took forever to make it official.
Well, no, but we knew he was the OC.
I think this is the same kind of situation, though.
Not really. We knew he was the OC. This is not. They have not.
I'm pretty sure this dude's the DC.
Yeah, but that's just weird, man. Okay. Yeah.
Now go ahead and bring us back in.
Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in you getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl@indyhomepros.com. This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Kevin, you probably didn't see this. Bob Baffert, one of the most successful trainers in the history of Thoroughbred Racing is suing Churchill Downs in order to enter his horses after, was it a doping ban?
Last year's fiasco. Yeah, that's interesting.
Doping ban from last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. If he doesn't do this, he's acknowledging guilt in most people's eyes, I guess. So he pretty much has to do this.
I agree.
Doping has gotten down to the horses. Oh, it has been for a while, but any sport, it's so funny, man. Any and every sport can be and is manipulated.
People looking for a competitive edge. Yeah, there's so
Always.
much money at stake. There's so much pressure at stake to win. And I remember when I first met Will Wade at SEC basketball media days a few years ago when I was covering the game.
Did he make a big ass offer or what?
No, but he said it's a winner's world. That was his line, and he certainly lived up to that billing of doing anything he can to win, and that's the way some people operate nowadays in this world.
Does that make him a winner or a cheater?
Well, I think people don't have any shame anymore. I think that's what it is. I just think
why should they? When you do what he did, when you say the things that he said on tape, and your own employer does nothing, the NCAA does nothing.
You're in there, the pressure to win, and the fact that the longer you stay in an institution, the more money you're going to make, and you could have lawyers that fight the accusations. Certainly you're paying the lawyers, but I think that, in the case of Will Wade, he's managed to stay at LSU long enough based on his success and his winning to the ends justifies the means, and he's laughing all the way to the bank.
Forrest said Bob Baffert is the Will Wade of horse racing.
Yeah.
There's a nice little segue. Perfect. Boom.
Yeah.
So Indiana, with their coaching situation on the football side of things, they still need a defensive line coach, although they have one in the guy that they just hired, because that's the only position he's coached since 2001, other than having some other responsibilities a couple of times. Indiana's defense was at a peak, man. It was way up, and it just really kind of fell off. Didn't fall into the gutter, but man, is Tom Allen afraid right now with losing his DC, losing his D-line coach? You're bringing in a guy who's only coached the D-line. Someone made a comment that maybe Tom Allen will be calling the plays again.
Well, here's the thing too. Coaches know their personnel, right? And you're losing Micah McFadden. That's a huge, huge loss. We saw what happened in the Cincinnati game when he was ejected for targeting. So they might know that the talent on that side of the ball next year, it's gonna be really hard. And they're dipping in the transfer portal. They're trying to add these linebackers. They added Jared Casey from Kentucky yesterday. They added Miles Jackson from UCLA. But we all know transfers are so hit and miss. Bradley Jennings from Miami. But losing McFadden, and I don't think anyone's heard anything on Cam Jones yet, but if he goes too, you're losing, some talent. Now, Tywan Mullen comes back. Is he going to be healthy? He's an All-American caliber player in the secondary. But I just, you just wonder, like, if coaches look at that and they say, man, we are losing our linchpin on defense. And we struggled at times last year. How much worse could it be this season without a guy like Micah McFadden on the defensive side of the ball? Now, the intriguing thing is Dylan McCullough. He's a really big, or Dasan McCullough, excuse me, he's a real X factor, because can he come in and be that maybe impact defensive player the way George Karlaftis was at Purdue a couple years ago, or is he going to take time to develop? But he's got all the athletic ability to be that kind of buck position guy, where maybe he comes in and plays as true freshman and plays really well. Highest rated recruit that Indiana's ever had. He's that will be interesting too. And can you get the most out of him with the defensive staff that you are assembling right now?
I'm looking over Chad Wilt's resume, if you would. It lists him as from 2001 to 03 as the Central Connecticut State defensive line coach and special teams coordinator. The year after that, he is a graduate assistant. I've never seen that in my life. How are you a coach before you're a graduate assistant coach?
The Central Connecticut State is a really small program. So where was he a graduate assistant coach?
Virginia.
Yeah, exactly. So you're moving up to you're moving up from a FCS to an FBS level school. So that might explain it. But he did have some success at Minnesota under PJ Fleck, and
he was there for one season. See, that's the thing. He's been a lot of places, all right. So he was a graduate assistant in Virginia for 1 year. He was at Liberty, the defensive line coach, for 2 years and their special teams coordinator. In 2009, back to Virginia as their defensive line coach. In 2010, he was at Richmond as their defensive line coach. In 2011 to 13 at Ball State as their defensive line coach. And then in 13, he was a defensive line coach and the recruiting coordinator. In 14-15, he was Maryland's defensive line coach. In 16 through 18, he was Army's defensive line coach. In 2019, Cincinnati's line coach. And in last season, 2020-21, Minnesota's line coach, D-line coach. I've just never – it's a very unusual looking resume for someone who's a Big Ten defensive coordinator. That's a very unusual looking resume. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of variety on it for a coordinator, for a background. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get it. And I think that sometimes people, they need a shot, they need an opportunity. So this might be his chance to prove that he can run a whole defense. But I would have a feeling
Nick Sheridan needed a shot, needed an opportunity.
I know. But, this guy has a little more. You're talking about 20 years as opposed to 10 years. I think Tom Allen, as you alluded to, may be heavily involved in the defense and in running the he's going to run the 4-2-5, and that will be fairly interesting to see.
You think that could be also coaches that come here are told you're going to run this? Coordinators. That's not usually how it always is as a coordinator. But right now at Indiana it is. And some guys don't like that.
Yeah, I think Tom Allen, though, identifies that in the interview process, is that I believe he's discussed that. He usually says that when he interviews a defensive coordinator, he looks for guys with 4-2-5 backgrounds that kind of believe in that philosophy. And I think Charlton Warren did, but I just think that for whatever reason, and I thought Charlton did a really nice job with the defense in September and October, and then it tailed off in November. And some of that certainly has to do with, I think, so much of defense, as you know, is effort. And I think when the season went south the way it did, I think guys got kind of dispirited. And, Micah McFadden brought it every game, but can you really say that every player brought it every game? Tywan Mullen, an All-American, gets injured in October. He doesn't come back, basically. Reese Taylor gets hurt. You had so many injuries in the secondary. But, they only forced 9 turnovers, too. And I'm sure that was something that Tom Allen, maybe did not like about Charlton Warren's scheme, that it wasn't aggressive enough, or it wasn't as aggressive and disruptive as Kane Womack's scheme was. Kane Womack, as we know, was more of a blitzer. He was a high-risk, high-reward guy. He was a gambler. I thought Charlton Warren's defensive style was a lot more conservative in that regard. And, maybe Tom Allen is looking for a guy that's going to take more chances. And we'll see if Chad Wilt is that guy, or we'll see if he's involved and if he's more that guy. They're going to be interesting questions to ask Tom if and when, the defensive staff shakes out.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Now they have to finalize that. And also, I mentioned earlier, third defensive coordinator in 3 years, but third offensive coordinator in 4 years. That's hard for a team that is trying to grow this program. All the while, it's like you're kind of spinning your wheels when you keep losing some main cogs in the machine.
That's endemic, I think, of a lot of Power 5 schools, though, other than, the true powerhouses, is I think everyone is climbing to get to that level where you're out of Georgia or out of Alabama and you're going to be bouncing around. You look at a lot of these coaches' resumes, you see guys that stick around for only 1 or 2 years and go. And Indiana, while they did lock up Tom Allen long-term financially and created some stability there, your assistant coaches come and go. And I saw it happen at Florida my many years covering there, where, coordinators bounce around. And, it's very hard to see a guy like Brent Venables, who's at Clemson for 10 years. And even he moved on to a head coaching job eventually. I mean, if you're bad at your job, you're going to get replaced. If you're good at your job, you're going to get a head coaching opportunity. Look what happened with Kalen DeBoer and Keen Womack.
Absolutely. And Ross says he saw a tweet that Thomas Allen moving into coaching. Not surprising at all with the injury that he dealt with in that hip. He's not going to be playing in the NFL. So coaching is probably his future, considering what his dad does for a living,
Yeah, why not? And, you started as a graduate assistant and you work your way up. Maybe you start at a place like Indiana, and learn and grow there.
Very possible. Hey, we got more to get to. Chronic Hoosier joining us next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Whether it's a celebration or... Hello, Chronic. How are you, brother?
I'm doing awesome. How are you fellas today?
Cannot complain. I'm just looking through some football mentions, guys. I can't believe the amount of players that are coming to Indiana. Wow, the coach with the coaching influx, and I'm sure it's happening at other places too. It just surprises me. That used to be the whole deal. You lose the coach, you lose players.
Yeah, it's been wild like that this year, and that may just be the landscape for all parties involved in these things, with the carousel spinning as crazy as it does right now. But it also probably highlights the importance of, the recruiting coordinators and all the behind the scenes people that are out there building relationships. We had that center over from, I think, Cincinnati this weekend at the basketball game. I'm sure he talked to the staff, but, it's Brian Walsh that's in his ear in every photo you see.
Yeah.
But it also maybe explains why some of these things just don't stick as well as you'd want, because, what the hell are you committing to when everything's constantly changing underneath your feet?
Yeah, it just blows my mind.
But it makes you wonder, though, how much, how long these discussions have been taking place, how far along they were at certain time points along the way, where these guys would have some assurances that this is the team, this is the staff you're joining as well. Which raises a whole host of issues for contractual interference.
Yeah, yeah. It's a wacky world. Wild and wacky
Especially
world.
when you just had signing day.
Yeah. It's messed up, though, because coaches are contract employees. They're not employees at will. Like pretty much everybody else at the university. I got a brother making peanuts down in Louisville, and he's got to change careers because of a no-compete clause in his contract that they will absolutely sue you over for like a $45,000 a year job. It's crazy. But in the coaching world, that's just par for the course. Everybody's out there trying to snipe your contract employees.
What does he do? I forgot.
He is in TV production.
Does he work for a station?
I forget which one it is. Yes.
No, but he does work for us. He works for a station. I was just wondering. I'm like, who the
10
hell?
seconds.
Yeah, he does a Great Day Live. I think it's the
WHAS
affiliate.
WHAS.
Yep, he produces that show.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Hey, welcome back. It is a bright and sunny Tuesday outside. It looks beautiful out there, but I got a sneaking suspicion, not quite the case. Chronic Hoosier's joining us, though. That's beautiful. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, man. It is a bright sunny day on the official first day of exclusively basketball season now, at least in the college sporting world. Football's behind us, and it's basketball's time to take the stage.
Well, so to speak, if we can keep them playing, Michigan's having a problem staying on the court, Kevin, and playing. I wonder how problematic that can become. They've missed 2 games already, at least. If they miss a third, that starts to makes you wonder about getting these games, because you got to get these games in.
Yeah, and then you'd have an imbalanced schedule, and we saw that whole Illinois-Michigan fiasco last year. By the looks of it, it doesn't look like Michigan will be contending for a Big Ten title this year, but you never know if they turn things around. But they're a program that's really struggling. It was interesting. I thought what was fascinating was Penn State and Ohio State coming off COVID. When Indiana played them, it seemed like in the Penn State game, it didn't benefit Indiana, and Penn State looked like the team down the stretch because they were playing at home. But I thought the Ohio State game in the last 10 minutes, for as well as Indiana's defense played, I saw a lot of Ohio State guys hands on hits, and E.J. Liddell did not look like himself either. He was 3 of 12. So you wonder going on if Indiana gets Michigan at home at the end of the month, and Michigan is still coming off the COVID. Maybe that's a time to pounce on them as well.
And they don't have to go to Michigan to this year, I believe, Chronic. That's one of the good reverses that they don't have to return, is a trip to Ann Arbor.
Nah, that's definitely one of the gems in the schedule for Indiana this year. You avoid having to go to Ann Arbor. You avoid having to go to Spaceship Assembly Hall over in Champaign. You only got to play Sparty once, albeit on the road. It's a pretty favorable schedule, all things considered, I think, for Indiana. But COVID is definitely going to be a wild card here. Indiana lost a non-conference game because of COVID already. I would imagine there's going to be more to come, but circling back, this is one of those situations where everybody's dealing with it just like before. The league has modified the forfeit rule, but it's going to put a premium on you got to win the games in front of you, and you can't take any of those for granted, because until the ball tips, there's really no certainty that the game's going to happen. The way the testing is taking place right now, and the way those results are coming in, and on top of all that, you're dealing with a variant now in Omicron that travels pretty quick. And once it gets in the locker room, as we've seen globally right now, it can wipe out available bodies in a hurry.
A premium on keeping your team healthy, too, I think, also, which Indiana has done. I mean, that postponement was because of UNC Asheville, not Indiana. And they're being very careful over there, I can tell you that, certainly in the media rooms and so forth. I think everyone is on guard, and you see most of the people, or more people, wearing their masks at Assembly Hall too. And I think that PA system announcement that Chuck Crabb makes is really telling about making sure that we can have that Indiana can continue to have fans in the future in games.
Yeah, it's wild right now. I mean, school just started yesterday, and IU is back in class. Everyone I know is online right now for at least the next 2 weeks. It's kind of like in the restaurant business, you'd almost call it a soft open, where yes, we're back, but we are tenuously hanging on, and we're kind of dipping our toes in it before we jump in with both feet, because this wave is, we're seeing crazy numbers right now, and you're seeing that reflected in game cancellations and positive results coming back on rosters across the country. So it's a premium on being smart. It's a premium on, keeping your guys mindful of what's at stake right now, because for a team like Indiana, some of those games are going to be huge NCAA resume opportunities, that you've only got so many of them left, and you need to start stacking W's in quad 1 and quad 2 if you want to hear your name on Selection Sunday. And I don't think Michigan's going to be that affected by it. They look like they're probably going to be on the outside looking in right now. But teams nationwide, especially teams like Indiana, you cannot take those for granted because there's no guarantee they go off as planned.
No, because Indiana, while looking good, they could their record could be sparkling right now. To be honest, they could be undefeated in the Big Ten very easily. And, losing to Syracuse on the road, that shouldn't have happened. So this is a team that could be actually doing better, but they're doing fine and they're in a great position. Their schedule has got them set up to do something they haven't done in 5 years now, make the NCAA tournament, which would make the fans extraordinarily happy. The Big Ten is a tough league again, and I think that there's going to be at least 8 teams out of this league go to the tournament, Kevin.
Yeah, I don't think it's as tough as the last 2 years as I've covered it, but it's still a decent league.
It's not as tough as the top, but it seems like it's about the same from 2 through 8 or 9.
I don't know. I thought last year was deeper because I think Maryland is down. I think Michigan is down. I think there's some programs that are, Minnesota, I know did some good things early, but they're a little down. But I do think Purdue and Wisconsin are certainly the heavyweights, and they're really tough. And if you can get wins against those two teams at home, and you're
Michigan
Indiana,
State
11-0 at home. And Ohio State is certainly already a quality win you have on your resume. So I think there's going to be opportunities there. Illinois at home. I mean, Illinois is we cracked into the top 25 this week. But whereas, if you remember last year, you had about 6 or 7 teams in the top 25 consistently. The Big Ten right now, you only have 4 or 5. I think that's where to me, I'm looking at the previous 2 years when I've been on the beat covering Indiana. You had about 6 or 7 teams in that top 25 conversation during the course of the year. This year, you only have about 4 or 5, maybe.
Chronic, your thoughts?
No, I do agree with Kevin. I don't think it's as strong as what it was perhaps last year with some of those marquee teams being down. But I think kind of like what you saw in football this year, the meat of the conference, the middle of the conference, is going to be extraordinarily competitive. It's going to make winning those games on the road extraordinarily difficult. It's going to put a gigantic emphasis on protecting your home court, because as we've seen already, any team can lose to pretty much anybody on any given night. Ask Rutgers, ask Purdue. Is Purdue still holding 3rd, I think, nationally in the poll right now? They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 8th in the Big Ten. No, I'm sorry, 7th in the Big Ten at the moment. 3rd in the country, 7th in the conference.
Yeah.
Yes, it's still early in the conference season, but we are. We're effectively, we're past the quarter point already. So as things are starting to take shape here, it's you can't take anybody for granted right now. Going to Iowa City has rarely been an easy task for Indiana. It's certainly going to be a winnable game this Tuesday night. But you're coming off a team that's currently in the buried in the bottom half of the league right now, and is probably poised to find a game where they just go berserk from a shooting standpoint. This is a team that can score the ball really well. It's going to put Indiana's defense to the test, but I think that's kind of indicative of what you're going to see for the remainder of the season. You absolutely cannot let your guard up for a moment because wins are always going to be tough to come by, and expect this season to be no different than any in recent memory. It's going to be a gauntlet. And, there's probably going to be some teams that Indiana absolutely cannot afford to lose to as they're trying to build their resume. We still don't know exactly who those are yet. I think Maryland is probably one of those that, you should look at as a gimme. But again, there's bad losses on the schedule as well if you were to drop those games, and you have to avoid those just as much as you have to pick up those big wins along the way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, you kind of took my next question out. Well, you don't know who those are yet. Although Penn State appears to be one of those, they're playing teams tough. Nebraska is probably one of those teams, but they're going to knock somebody off. They've been playing teams close at home. They're playing Illinois at home tonight, I think. So I agree. There's not a team that you can take for granted in the league. I don't care what place if they're 14th, it doesn't matter. You've seen that. You take one night off, you have a 22-point lead, and you relax, it's gone. And I think that they learned a valuable lesson in that Wisconsin game. And we saw that in the Ohio State game. They stayed strong, or they started and stayed that way. They didn't have that lull, that really bad lull that they have been having up through the season, up through now. Kevin.
By the way, I just pulled up the AP poll. Purdue dropped to number 7 in the country.
Okay.
Wisconsin is 13, Ohio State 16, and Illinois is now in at 25. And Michigan State is 10, remain at 10. So you've got 5 teams in there, and teams that Indiana is going to see later in the season with a chance for some quality wins. Certainly Illinois at home, Wisconsin at home, Purdue at home, and then you get Purdue on the road and Michigan State on the road. Those 5 games are going to be, and you get Ohio State on the road too. So February, really, this February is going to be a bear of a schedule, and you just hope that this, I think, Indiana team grows to the point and continues to build confidence to where they go into those February games believing they can win. We certainly saw what happened last year with Archie. You're 12-9, and then you lose 6 in a row at 10 the year, and the season goes up in smoke. So you want to build this team to when it gets into February where they can, I think, kind of believe and have the confidence and build the depth too, which I think Mike Woodson's done a good job of doing, especially with Trey Galloway back now, Jordan Geronimo, getting that second unit, believing in that second unit through their offensive lulls, because he knows they're going to need him, deeper into the season when teams get tired.
Absolutely. And this has been fun to watch this team, Chronic, improve. And we have seen them improve over the last couple of games. Not to say that there's not going to be lulls, because each game is and that's another thing about Woody. You can tell he's taking each game as the matchups come. The starting lineups are the same, but his rotations are not the same. His sequencing is not the same. And I like that. That tells you you got somebody who knows what the hell's going on, and they're paying attention to what is happening in the game right now.
One thing that you hear Woody constantly circling back to is the concept of these guys, and it's a two-way street in the locker room, but this is a team still getting to know each other. He's still trying to get to know his guys. His guys are still trying to get to know him. And you hear that echoed in a lot of the comments from the players themselves. And I think you see that reflected in games like Minnesota, games like Ohio State, but also games like Wisconsin and Syracuse, where, when Indiana is at a high leverage point, who's going to be the guys that can apply that leverage for him? When they start off the second half and watch that 10-point lead just evaporate, in a series of plays, who's the guy that he can rely on to kind of steady the ship and get them back on track? And, so far we've seen they've been able to ratchet the defense up when they need to make those pivots. And it's certainly been a process to this point, but it's certainly something where you're seeing the lessons internalized. You're seeing it be effectuated on the floor. And I'm not saying that it's the lessons complete right now, far from it, as a matter of fact. But, the Minnesota game, kind of the antithesis of what happened up at the Kohl Center in Wisconsin. Team had a pretty strong first half, especially the close to the first half, came out really flat in the second, but they were able to get their legs back underneath them and close it out and even get the cover on that. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on. As I said, after the Minnesota game, though, for a defense that's really establishing itself as this team's identity, we have still yet to see it on the road, and we've still yet to see it for a full 40 minutes. So there's certainly a lot of growth available for this team, but thing that sticks out for me right now, at least at this point in the year, there is a foundation, there is an identity that they can build upon, and now they've got to find a way to take it on the road, because that's going to be the critical component. I mean, I don't care if you're talking about competing for the Big Ten or in the NCAA. Eventually, you're going to have to win some games outside of Assembly Hall or the great state of Indiana.
And the difference in home, too, of being able to have a kind of a crowd spur you on in that last 10 minutes as opposed to last year when you didn't have it, I think is something that certainly is helping Woody and the players as well. And I think the Wisconsin, when you're on the road, on the other hand, and things start to go, south, and you have a crowd against you, that can get into teams' heads, too. So I think that's the whole thing, that home and road aspect. And I also thought it was interesting in the Minnesota game, you start out shooting lights out from 3, 7-14, but what did Woody do to ready the ship? He went inside to Trace. He went inside to Race. He recognized the mismatch on Race and the guards, and that 10-0 run was really fueled by, bringing the ball back outside after they kind of lost their way offensively the first 10 minutes of the second half and throwing up some wild shots. Xavier Johnson, going coast to coast and trying to bang shots in and so forth. And I think they got really disciplined offensively there in the last 10 minutes and went to their bread and butter.
Yeah, you got to shake your moneymaker. And obviously, Minnesota has employed a tactic that you're probably going to see a lot more down the road. Just throw the kitchen sink at Trace and make everybody else beat you. Indiana was fortunate. Rob Finney stepped up pretty big. That was one of the better games of his career at Indiana. We're going to have to see more consistent play across the board from the backcourt, though. But while I do think going back to your bread and butter is wise, it starts with getting stops. This team, when they're able to string some stops together, the offense gets a whole lot easier for everybody involved when they can get in transition.
Absolutely. New podcast coming out for you anytime soon?
We're currently on a baby hiatus right now. The Ostermans brought a new boy back to their house. So Zach is taking his hard-earned paternal leave. Hopefully he's doing his part and changing some diapers and keeping his lovely and awesome wife Audrey sane right now. But I think Dustin and I may try to circle together here because he's kind of manning the ship right now. They've got Matt Cohen, fabulous intern, who's still with the IDS, I believe, as well, perhaps. I don't know if he's completely abandoned them yet, but I think we're going to try to circle together and see if we can do some talking here.
Sounds like a winner. Make sure you let us know. Be on the lookout for that. We'll look forward to it. Look forward to having you back on again next week.
Can't wait. You guys have a good one. We'll see you then.
Looking forward to it. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with more with Kevin Brockway right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Whether it's a celebration, Southern Stone, dun, 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 dun. I didn't see this. I saw this earlier, but I didn't really get it, but I like this idea, Sam. Montverde is having an invitational tournament in – was that 2 weeks? And they are located
Claremont. Yeah, I've been to their campus. Yeah.
Outside of Orlando.
Montverde, Florida. Yeah, Claremont, near kind of north of Orlando, 20 miles. It's a beautiful campus.
Well, I'm like, yeah, let's do a show. Let's do some shows down there, man.
In the middle of nowhere, too. It's like a very isolated and in that area of North Florida, you have a little bit of rolling hills. It's actually kind of pretty there. It's
what? Somebody was telling me about that. That's the only place in all of Florida that there are hills.
Yeah, right? Yeah, Claremont, that area. Yeah, it's very but I've interviewed players there before. I've been to their campus, and because Florida had recruited a lot of guys there over the years, Casey Hill and Andrew Nemhard, I did a story on from there, who's still playing at Gonzaga. And Kevin Boyle does such a good job there. It's unbelievable. But you know who went to school there to play baseball was Francisco Lindor. Played at Montverde Academy.
Well, I can pick out whiskey.
I mean, they have beautiful sports facilities all over the board there. Their gym is beautiful. And I think they're starting to play football there now too. They're dipping their toe into that a little bit.
I'm surprised that it took them that long. Basketball's so much easier, though.
Yeah.
What do you have coming up?
What do I have coming up?
Yep, CNHI.
Yeah, we've got a story on. I'm teaming up with Elton on a story on opt-outs this week. Actually, the opt-out crisis in college football, and of course, we'll have basketball coverage throughout the week. And
is that Elton Vaughn Purple Haze?
Yes, Purple Haze running through your mind.
Elton Vaughn Purple Haze.
Man, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with my alarm is not working.
I've had that happen before.
Because I was because I didn't get back here until 3 a.m, and that call from the Big Ten show woke me up at 8:30, and I was like literally like waking up right out of bed. So I was like mentally not there. It was just bad. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Coming back.
Podcast or on this station each weekday. If we're not on the station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you're having a good start to your week. I saw someone post on yesterday that Georgia left their football pants behind, and they posted this on Facebook, and that Center Grove lent them their white Nike pants. But I noticed that the pants that Georgia was playing in had a black and red stripe down the side, and the picture that posted from Center Grove, they're just white.
Yeah. That would be surprising if that was the case.
That they had left their pants at home or some craziness. Not that wouldn't happen. That craziness would happen, but I guarantee you somebody was driving from Georgia to Indianapolis in a private plane. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I promise you, there was a private plane on its way.
Yeah. I think there were plenty of people coming up from Athens throughout the week that could have brought them their britches, so to speak. But that was a, we would call it, back in the day, you used to wear the silver pants. I thought that was always a good look.
I'm trying to figure out what that is, but
yeah. Remember when Georgia used to wear those silver pants?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those were pretty snazzy back in the day. The silver britches. But here's 41 years of
here's a free somebody gave me a free piece of advice. Stay away from anything Center Grove women post on Facebook. Maybe some truth to that. Craziness.
Yeah, some wild and wacky stuff indeed. But
wild and wacky stuff.
Like the Florida fans used to always throw 1980 at Georgia, and now what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Kirby Smart has that program going on, and he's they're getting great recruits, and he's selling it, and he's the guy that has managed to get it done and mobilize it. And we'll see if they can build this into a dynasty, or if it's just a one-year thing. We know how competitive the SEC is, when are we going to have a non-SEC champion again? Well, you had Clemson. You had
part of that. Part of that is having the 12 teams. You just have to have more.
I think the cream still rises to the top, though.
I don't doubt that, but the point I was going to say is you still have to have the opportunity for upsets because they happen. I'm not going to say it's going to happen every year, but you're just going to have upsets. Look what happened last night. The team that beat the other team weeks ago lost to that team last night. So
yeah, that's very hard. It's very hard. And we've seen the history of that has shown that, the team that usually wins the SEC championship usually falters in the national championship. I think it was LSU, Alabama a few years ago, Georgia and Alabama in reverse in 2017. The history has shown it's hard to beat a team twice in that proximity. and there's usually some complacency that sets in with the team that wins the SEC title as opposed to the national title. I kind of thought the history of Nick Saban beating Kirby Smart would rule the day, but Georgia was a better team. And I'll tell you what, Georgia was hitting hard in that game. Like you could see, I guess they were just thumping guys. So they were motivated, and they played a physical brand of football. I kind of thought what was very telling was after they went up 1, they make a defensive stop and they just run the football down Alabama's throat. And, you don't see that very often. I think Stetson Bennett said we got back to playing Georgia football, which was, he thought it was great being able to hand the ball off and having the offensive line just mash Alabama. And they did that, and they bled the clock, and then they came up with, the big third down play on the touchdown as well.
Nothing related to this, just I find it funny. Hulk Hogan, and I don't care what side you stand on, it has no bearing on this being funny or not. Hulk Hogan's an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
What makes that funny? This is a guy who for years shoved steroid after steroid into his body, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all. I just wanted to clear that up. Like I said, I don't care. It doesn't even matter what side you stand on. That's funny, period.
Terry Bollea, right?
Bolero.
Bolero.
Terry Bolero. Yes, I believe. Just thought that was funny. It popped up. Just little things that make me smile. Indiana taking off for Iowa City tomorrow to play the next night, of course, but they have to be there a day in advance. We'll be there Thursday.
Yes.
That's Iowa is one of the teams that's down this year, but that's mainly because they don't have Luka Garza.
Yep. But they have Keegan Murray. They have Keegan Murray, who's very good. But, it's interesting in the 2 years that I've covered the Hoosiers, it's going my third year. Indiana seems to match up well with Iowa, and I think it's because Iowa kind of plays that soft zone defense, and Indiana tends to score against them. Yeah. It's not a rock. It seems like Indiana struggles more in those physical rock fight games, like, the Penn State we saw earlier this season. But Iowa more of an open court team, so you're going to be able to get your points against them. You just have to come on the defensive end. And if you remember, Jordan Geronimo did a terrific job on Luka Garza last year off the bench in that game in Iowa City. And Indiana pulled away and won by 13. And that was a big win at the time last year for them. But they couldn't capitalize on it and sustain the momentum from that win. And I think this year will be very interesting. Then you go to Nebraska too. But 0-3 on the road, you got to find a way to win.
I was going to say,
Assembly Hall, and you want to take at least one of these games, I think.
Having lost at Syracuse, having lost at Wisconsin, again, how important is getting a road win, not against a Nebraska, but against an Iowa or someone like that?
Well, you got to get one of them, So I think at least, and then if you can get two and steal both of them, then you've really got something going on. Then you really take some positive momentum going back home the following week. But you'd like to get a road win on your resume for sure. You don't want to go there and go 0-2. And I believe they're going to probably stay up there, right? And then, just go from Nebraska to there. Or
I don't know. You got 4
days.
They
did that last year. I remember they had a similar stretch where they stayed up there.
But the thing is, you do have to be in the Big Ten city the day before the game. So, they play again. It's Monday, right?
Monday night, yeah.
So they have to be in Nebraska Sunday. They would normally leave Iowa on Thursday night, but they could be back in Bloomington in a couple hours.
Yeah.
They fly to Bloomington. Yeah. So I don't know that they stay gone or if they just come back home. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do, but I agree. Getting both of those wins would be phenomenal. But if you lose the first one, you put pressure on yourself because I said earlier in the show, Nebraska is going to get somebody at home.
Yep.
They're playing teams close enough. You keep a good enough team within 10 points.
Yeah.
They took over. They have, I think they have Illinois tonight. It'll be interesting to see how that game turns out. but they played Indiana close in Bloomington.
Indiana pulled away in the second half.
Well, for a while, but it was a battle, and so
Nebraska had a really bad shooting day that day. I think they were like 2 of 17 from 3. And who's the really talented young freshman guard? He was just throwing up shots and wasn't anywhere close.
But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think that it would be a lot better for Indiana if they could get the win against Iowa and not put the pressure on themselves of possibility of going. That was a beautiful face there. Going 0-2 on the road, which that would put them back at.
That's my yawn. I got it at 3 a.m, so I'm entitled.
Party boy.
No, work. Okay, the game didn't end until midnight, and then the Zoom interviews didn't end until 1 a.m. And then I parked by Gainbridge, for the $10 lot. So by the time I got to my car, it was 2 a.m. and then had to drive back to Bloomington.
Well, I hate to hear that. Let's see. Tim says he sees a 7-game winning streak, possibly. Yeah.
Don't this team?
Fan talk, man. there has not been a team in the Big Ten win 7 straight games.
Yeah.
So keep that
in perspective.
Exactly. Lenardi has Indiana as an 8 seed. All right. That means they're anywhere from 28 to 32. Guess what they're ranked this week? 31st.
Yep.
Dead and right in the middle. That's exactly where they're ranked in the AP poll. It's exactly where Lenardi has them.
Be interesting where they sent them. Milwaukee is 5 hours up the road. There's a site in Indianapolis, but you have to be top 4 to play that close to home.
Yeah, we'll see how much COVID plays into that. They've gone in recent years to a system of trying to keep teams closer to home in the early rounds.
Yep.
COVID may even force that even more so.
Yeah. Indianapolis, like I said, certainly that would be nice for a first round site, but I would think that it's really hard to have an 8 seed in Indiana and Indianapolis and give them that kind of advantage in that kind of a game. I would think that they would send them to Milwaukee. I think Buffalo too has a site this year. It's kind of odd. Not too many southern sites. Greenville, South Carolina is one of those.
I have never shuffled off to Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo's a good town. Yeah, my brother went to college there, and I did a lot of my underage drinking in Buffalo. It's a good place.
Did you make it to St. Elmo's at all
this weekend?
Few days? Yeah.
No, I did not, but they had the shrimp from St. Elmo's in the press room, so that was really nice. But
are you kidding me?
The shrimp and the shrimp cocktail was so good. I had to drink a few Diet Cokes, and it
don't
was.
even want to hear it now.
It was delicious. Yeah. And I went up there.
Whiz.
Yeah, and Saturday I was up there as well, and it was a fun atmosphere. It was fun to see some of the former SEC scribes that remembered me, and they had they were curious. They had a lot of questions about Indiana basketball, and more so than about Indiana football, but. They were very curious and happy to see that I'm settled in here and doing a halfway decent job at least.
How many shrimp did you eat? Tell the truth.
No, like 4 or 5. It didn't come out till like halftime because they had ziti in the beginning, and then they had burgers too. So at halftime, I scarfed out a burger and had a few shrimp. But that cocktail sauce is so hot. I had to drink like 2 Diet Cokes. I mean, it was so tasty too.
Rookie. Yeah, after these road games, Indiana gets to visit from Purdue. That's going to be very interesting.
3-game homestand: Purdue, Michigan, and Penn State.
Or is it Nebraska?
Yeah, after Nebraska, you have a 3-game homestand.
So we'll look forward to that.
A lot of road games in February and some tough ones. If you're at Ohio State and at Purdue in March and at Michigan State, of course. Yeah, that's going to be.
Well, it's like Chronic said. One thing Indiana cannot complain about is their schedule this year. It has been kind to them. The game at Wisconsin they should have won. The game at Syracuse they should have won. So they could be in a lot better shape. But it is what it is. And
at Penn State they could have won. Yeah,
lot more season to go yet. But we'll just keep at it. I can't wait till see what happens in Iowa City on Thursday.
Yeah, it should be a fun trip. We were there for football, and I'm sure Indiana fans are hoping the result will be different than the football trip was in September. But certainly it will be colder weather.
It will certainly be colder weather, and the expectations will be a little different. Don't really have any going down this time for the basketball game because, it can go either way. The expectations were up a little bit for football. Not going to lie to you. Went down there this year. It was rather disappointing, but what a fun day it's been. Cannot thank you enough as always. Big thanks to Mike DeCourcy and Chronic Hoosier, John the producer. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you all, there's no reason for us to be here. We're back again tomorrow to do it all over again. Thanks a lot to Kevin. We'll see him again on Thursday maybe. But until then, go out and have yourselves a great day. I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.